This video demonstrates how to do the Unit 2 project. The topic I chose for my Unit 2 project is typical belts, which is not one of the options that was assigned to you. In my introduction, I state my research questions. How far from the end of the belt should the holes be in order for the belt to fit typical women? How far from the end of the belt should the holes be in order for the belt to fit typical men? And can the same belt reasonably be used to fit typical men and typical women? In other words, can we have a unisex belt? To analyze these questions, I'm going to state the variable that I'm using, waist girth in this case in centimeters, and I need to state which type of variable this is, quantitative or categorical. This is a quantitative variable. In the second part of the report, the exploratory data analysis, I need to make appropriate graphs and an appropriate numerical summary. The graphs which I'm choosing to make in this report are histograms and box plots, and I'm going to make those graphs using StatCrunch. I'm going to open StatCrunch, and I'm going to load my data. I'm going to load it from my groups. I'm going to load it from the Math 34 Los Moranos College group. And the data I'm going to use is in body measurements, bodymeasurements.txt. I'm going to make a histogram, I said. And the variable I said I was going to use waist girth. This histogram I can see is skewed to the right. Let's include a measure of the center. I'll go to Options, Edit, and because this is skewed, I'm going to include the median. Now I'm going to get fancy here. The measure of the typical interval is from Q1 to Q3. So I'm going to get fancy. I'm going to add some custom markers as well from Q1 to Q3. I don't need to do this, but to include the custom interval from Q1 to Q3, I'm looking for Q1, there I go, Q1, add function, and it's asking me what goes inside these parentheses. That would be X, add the column, okay, add another custom marker, build. I want to find Q3, because the typical interval goes from Q1 to Q3, add function, what goes inside these parentheses is X, add column, okay. The median will be marked in red, Q1 and Q3, the typical interval will be marked in purple and purple, compute, and now I can see the typical interval is between 68 and 84.5, the median, the center is at 75.8. This histogram on the x-axis is measuring waist girth in centimeters. On the y-axis, it's measuring the frequency, the number of people who have that waist girth. The waist girth should be in centimeters, so on the x-axis, I want to include waist girth in centimeters. We have the numbers on the x-axis and the numbers on the y-axis, and this was supposed to be separated by waist girth for men and waist girth for women, so I go back up to Options and Edit, and I want to group by gender, compute, and now I have a title, gender equals female. If I go to the right arrow, I can see I have a title for the second graph, gender equals male. Now I want to copy and paste those graphs into my Word document. So I'll go to Options, Copy, and it says right-click. On a Macintosh, it will give me different directions because I don't have a right-click button. But here it tells me to right-click on a PC or a Windows machine and select Copy Image. And then to paste into Word or PowerPoint, it said use Control-Alt-V. On a Macintosh, it will give me different instructions. Because on a Macintosh, I don't have a control button, I'll go back to Word now and I follow the instructions, Control-Alt-V, and I'll choose Device Independent Bitmap. Okay. Okay, there we go. Gender equals male. That graph is too big because I want to have male and female here. So I'll resize it using this grab handle at the bottom right. I also wanted female. Got to get female. Go back to that graph. Options, copy, follow the instructions, whatever it says. Right click on the image to copy it, and then Control-Alt-V, copy, image, go back to Word, Control-Alt-V, device independent map, and grab it by the lower right and shrink it a little bit. Add some enters, enter, 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 enter. There, that looks better. I also want to include a second type of graph. I want to include a couple of box plots. So let's close this for the moment. Let's go make some graphs and box plots. And I want to do waist girth again. Waist girth. And group by gender. And use fences to identify outliers. And let's draw the boxes horizontally. And box plots automatically include the median and Q1 and Q3, so I don't need to include those. And compute. And the x-axis is waist girth. That's why I chose to draw the boxes horizontally. If I hadn't chosen horizontally, the y-axis would be waist girth. I've got the female and I've got the male here. So the x-axis is labeled already. I've got the numbers and I've got the label waist girth. I've got the gender, and I'm missing a title. So let me go back up to lower left corner. Let's pick a title here. Waist girth. Okay, and I need units here on the x-axis. So I'll need centimeters. Okay. Then I want to copy. So options, copy, and right click and copy image. And then I want to paste these into my Microsoft Word report. Control-Alt-V as a bitmap. Okay. There we go. And shrink it a little bit. Grab the grab handle, shrink it. Too small, move it to the next page. Now for my numerical summary or statistics. Because my histogram is skewed and because I have outliers, either reason tells me that I need to use the median and the IQR instead of the standard deviation and mean. I go to Stat, Summary Stats, Columns. I need for the waist girth. I need not all of these statistics. I need the median. I need the Q1 and Q3 for the typical interval. And I need the IQR for the spread. I also need to group by gender. I don't want you to copy and paste the table into your report. Instead, I want you to type it in as sentences. The median was 63. For women, the median was 68.3, the IQ was 8.1, the IQR was 8.1, and the typical interval was from 64.7 to 72.8 centimeters. For men, the median was 83.4, the IQR was 12.1, the typical interval was from 77.9 to 90 centimeters. I can make the following conclusions for the research questions. The holes in the belt for typical women should be spread out from Let's round this off to 65 centimeters to 72 centimeters from the end of the belt. The holes for a typical men's belt should be spread out from, let's round it off to 78 to 90 centimeters from the end of the belt. And with one last look at the box plot, typical men's belts and typical women's belts, the box here for men and the box here for women do not overlap. So no, I would not want the men's belts and the women's belts to be the same. I'd want a women's belt to look with the holes over here between 70 or 65 to 73 centimeters for the holes, and for a man the holes should be over here between 78 and 90 centimeters. So my conclusion is no, it would not make sense to try to sell the same belt to typical men and typical women, because the typical intervals of waist girths for men and women do not overlap. This concludes my demonstration of my Unit 2 project.